Besides, it's a completely lame, oversized lighter that does not have an oversized flame. So what's the point?
The flame gets oversized.
Yeah, but if it's not like the Joker from Batman, the original Batman
I don't want to
movie,
set this room on fire.
But yeah, see, that's a complete wuss flame. Like, that's
right.
totally unworthy.
Hey, it's a valid
of a lighter
Put
bigger
it
than your
back
fist.
on your desk.
It's a
Don't
valid
drop
complaint.
it on the floor.
It needs to move its way off the desk. So here's the phone. We've got Keynote running.
Yes.
Right? And I do a screen capture of the screen. And yeah.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
All right. We got negativity bias this week.
Oh, fun.
This was requested by Don.
This was.
And so I fully expect Don to interject with all his thoughts and completely take over half the presentation.
I was going to assume I'd start mansplaining. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. Remember, the Pocky Puck is over on my side.
Yeah, but I got the trophy.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure I can make the hockey puck hurt more.
Fair enough.
All right, negativity bias. So the definition of a negativity bias is that even when of equal intensity, negative things have a greater effect on a person's psychological state than do neutral or positive things. So in other words, the human brain is built with a greater sensitivity to unpleasant news.
Basically, you know what? You got me all self-conscious. But this was all, I requested this because we talked about this a little bit on our, what was it? The I Met Farrah Abraham clip, right? If you search for I Met Farrah Abraham, get off my lawn records, here we are.
I think we've talked about it on a couple episodes.
Yeah, so
we mentioned it anyway.
But the idea is you could have 10% feel like 90% when you're talking about like, do things feel like everybody's doing this? Is nobody doing this? That sort of thing. That's really where the negativity bias comes out from. So go ahead.
Well, it's a little more complicated than that.
Of course it is.
So this all has biological roots. Negative stimuli produce more neural activity than do equally intense positive stimuli.
Yep.
Negative stimuli is also identified more easily and quickly.
Negative stimuli means like something scared me.
Something scared you. It's definitely the fight or flight response.
Yep.
You know, it's how they figured out that the negative stimuli is identified more easily and quickly is they did the thing where they sit the people down in front of a computer and like flash images of faces at them.
Yep.
And even when they go so fast that you can't really identify them visually, they still registered when an angry face popped up.
And
far more likely than a smiling face.
And then what was the question? The question was what percentage were angry?
No, they were picking up brain activity
Gotcha.
while they were doing it.
Gotcha. But what I'm saying though is if you ran that experiment yourself, you can reproduce this. You run a bunch of positive faces and negative faces, intersperse the negative ones randomly, and then show it to somebody and ask them what percentage of the negative faces were in that series of photos, and they will tell you a much higher percentage than what was actually in there. If you put 10%, they might say 50. So go ahead.
So the amygdala, which is responsible for the fight or flight response, uses about 2/3 of its neurons to look for bad news. So it's already primed for the negative.
Where's the amygdala in the brain?
It's on either side. There's like little almond-shaped regions.
So like if you got hit in the head right there.
Yeah.
Bad, weird stuff would happen. Keep going.
Yeah. Negative events and experiences get quickly stored in memory, whereas positive events need to be held in awareness for a dozen or more seconds in order to transfer from short-term memory to long-term memory.
Which basically means if you experience 6 seconds of happiness, you will forget it.
If you don't sit there and consciously dwell on it, yes.
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense why it would be this way from an evolutionary perspective, because clearly this function would be useful as a survival mechanism.
Sure.
You want to remember the bad stuff so that you can avoid it. But
and they also use the example of if you're a hunter-gatherer approaching a bush and the bush rustles, is that because of the wind or is that because there's a tiger behind the bush?
Yeah.
Well, everyone that decided to be irrational and run away survived.
Exactly.
Whereas at least a portion of the people who were like, I'm going to see if it's a tiger or just the wind, they never made it back.
Exactly. So the bias is so automatic that it can be detected in the earliest stages of the brain's information processing. Like they've detected this in infants. So, it likely evolved to keep us out of harm's way, as we just discussed. And the survival of the early humans depended on this ability to dodge danger. So basically, the people who had this more ingrained went on to survive and pass on their genes. And so now we're all just horribly, horribly negative people.
Yep. Yep.
Well, it really hurts us in the information age because it makes negative stories jump out at us more and makes it harder to recognize the positive aspects of people and organizations and things. And even though there's a lot of villains and evil actors in the world, if you can't tell the difference between them and the good guys, then that's a pretty lousy place to be.
Sure. But at the same time, most of us aren't in mortal danger every day, unless you count the freeway. And yes, I totally do.
Especially here in Texas.
Yes.
They're crazy out here.
They really are.
I've driven in California. Texas can't hurt me anymore.
No, California is nothing compared to Texas.
I don't know. Those California drivers
LA traffic.
Those California drivers weren't all you made them out to be. New York drivers now.
Okay, what did
New York
you just
has the best drivers in the world.
Uh-huh.
Hey, listen, 55. When the speed limit says 55, we all assume that means the minimum. It didn't say maximum. It could have been minimum. That's all I'm saying.
It's not the Autobahn, dear.
Tell that to the drivers who commute on the Taconic.
Uh-huh. But, since we have desk jobs, we're not out in mortal danger. And so this, our tendency to accentuate the negative ends up getting repressed. Or what is wrong with your device?
Hit play.
I've done this twice. It gets repressed and internalized, and I'm fairly certain it leads to depression and anxiety. Because those were not complaints that we heard 2,000 years ago or even 100 years ago on a regular basis.
First world problems.
Yes.
Right?
It's true. Because it only becomes a bad thing in an environment where you don't have to fear for your life.
What's wrong with the device?
I don't know.
Fix the device.
So here's what I want to do at this moment, right? Hashtag first world problems. Leave me a comment below. Leave me your favorite hashtag first world problem you've ever heard of. I'm sure there's some good ones. The internet's out. Oh.
Why don't you plug the phone in? It might make a difference.
That won't help at all. It's not a battery issue here. I'm taking this off.
Okay.
I was showing Steven this. I have a thing where I can mount my phone to a tripod.
It is very cool, actually.
It's pretty nifty, right? And it would be so simple. I'm really thinking about doing like, I've been talking about doing Don Plays With Himself, the series where I play solo on the Jazz Destroyers page, right? So
I'm glad you clarified that.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you clarified that.
See? And it would be me playing solo, right? Probably with
on an
looper.
instrument.
On an instrument. Nobody wants to see that. So yeah. But the iPhone, I think some of the early Freeform Fridays videos we shot partially on iPhone.
Yeah.
It's kind of a pain in the butt getting the files off of them and into the computer. Like, because everything else does the SD cards.
I think even up to like 4 guitars? I think part of that was shot on iPhone.
Yeah, I think we did set an iPhone up for that one. Because the T5, last year it was like you were shooting. What were you shooting the Freeform? Okay.
Okay. Let's move on. So there's 4 possible explanations for the negativity bias. Well, the first one's negative potency. While possibly of equal magnitude or emotionality, negative and positive things are not equally important or noticeable.
To some people.
To some people, but when your life's on the line, are you going to notice the positive or are you going to notice the thing that might kill you?
Hey, this thing's about to eat me, but at least we got running water.
Yeah, exactly. So then the second one is the steeper negative gradient. Negative events are perceived as increasingly more negative than positive events are increasingly positive the closer one gets to the event itself. So like if you really hate going to the dentist and you've got to get a root canal, the feeling of dread is going to get worse and worse and worse the closer you get to the appointment.
I've never had a problem with it.
You have good teeth. You're lucky.
I have fantastic teeth.
Oh, well, dentists specifically, but just that I have countless times felt that sense of oppressive impending dread when going toward anything that I didn't want to do.
Sure.
Whereas you're right, I've never really thought about it till now, but it's true that there is not an equal positive effect. Like you can get more amped up the closer you get to something you're excited for, but it never seems to be quite as like underneath the spine as the dread version does.
Yeah, and even when you're going to do something positive, like go on vacation, there's always that moment like the night before your flight where like, oh, I've got to go through the airport and deal with a layover and, even the positive stuff goes negative.
I like traveling with you.
Why is that?
You're a good airport companion.
Is that why every time you have to travel by yourself, I get called from whatever airport you're stuck in?
Yeah.
Hey, some airports are kind of awesome.
No.
Yeah, some are.
No.
Some
They're all
are.
very expensive.
Oh, sure, but I mean...
Everything's more expensive in the airport.
Well, I just mean as an institution, there's something charming about the self-contained universe of a large airport.
Of such a socialist idea. Agreed upon air travel. Holy mackerel.
Hey, the air travel industry is one of the most efficient, like, fact-based industries out there. Like, the air travel industry has so many procedures, especially regarding air travel safety, that should be standard procedure for every industry everywhere. And if most people understood how badly the healthcare industry does compared to the airline industry regarding learning from failure, they would never want to see a doctor again.
Yeah. All right.
I'm not covering that next week. That is way too big a topic. Okay. So the third explanation.
You know what, Stephen? You should do that on your next Escape from Ignorance. Why the healthcare industry, like, walk everybody through it. That would be a good.
Oh, we're nowhere near that point yet.
All right.
That's way down the road.
Okay, so our third explanation.
You should write it anyway, and then when you get there, it's done. Go ahead.
You sure? You sure this time?
Yeah.
Promise?
Okay.
No, I need you to say I promise.
I promise.
Okay. Third explanation. Negativity dominance. The tendency for the combination of positive and negative things to skew towards an overall negative interpretation. The whole is more negative than the sum of its parts.
Oh, that's the one I think is the... That's the... Oh, no. Some is...
That was actually kind of what we just talked about.
I think that is the
Travels with me.
fallacy that turns a lot of people against public figures unfairly.
Fair enough. We're not doing politics.
We're
on
not,
this
but
show
I just
anymore.
think that's how that applies in real life to me. Is I think it hinders our ability to fairly judge public figures because we can't effectively balance in our heads the positive and the negative.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, and then the last one is negative differentiation, which is the conceptualization of negativity is more elaborate and complex than that of positivity. So think about like when you're describing a positive event, you've got so many words and so many ways to describe it, but you've got way more negative ways to describe something.
Huh.
It's true. There's a lot more synonyms for negative words and a lot more variety of negative words than there is positive ones.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. That's kind of why Thunderwake is so dark. It's because we really got right early with it at certain points. And at other points, we just improv. But, Greg went way down the rabbit hole on some of that.
He really, really did.
And
See,
you're right. It's so
Thunderwake-
much easier to do skew negative.
And I consider that that movie to be like happy and bubbly compared to some of his other work.
Yeah. Yeah. He's pretty cynical.
But in a very entertaining way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Greg Sisco. Everybody should read Donald Trump and the Hairpiece of Evil.
It foretold the future.
It really
was
did.
Written and published before the election. And if you read it now, you would be convinced that it wasn't written until well after it.
Yep. Yeah, he started writing that. I think I was on him to get it out by the end of the primary, by the conventions.
Yeah.
Oh, and let's be clear, this is not a politically biased book.
No.
Even though it's called Donald Trump and the Hairpiece of Evil, and clearly there's a lot of fun made of Donald Trump, the entire American political system and every famous figure from both parties is
Totally
beautifully skewered.
Yeah. It's fun for everybody.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
All right. So, ways to combat the negativity bias. And if any of you have like been in treatment for depression, and have taken like cognitive behavioral therapy, then you'll actually recognize quite a few of these. So the first way to combat it is just to recognize it.
Yep.
Realize you're going negative.
Hey, the first step is admitting I have a problem, right?
Yes.
Let's recognize it. Exactly.
So next one is savor the positive experiences. So when you have a positive experience, like be in the moment and enjoy it and make it long-term memory.
Sure.
Next one is keep a ratio of 5 to 1. They found that you basically need 5 positive things to make up for 1 negative thing.
Yeah.
So, yes.
5 to 1.
5 to 1. That seems to be the magic number.
I think the magic number is the ratio is much higher online versus in person. I think 5 to 1's about right for in person.
Yeah.
So, hey, go give somebody a hug. Right? Love each other. Hey, by the way, you can
See,
say
I
the
was
next one
thinking-
is, the next one is.
You're like, love each other. And I'm like, so I should get 5 cheeseburgers instead of just 1 next time.
No, because there's a negative.
No, you should get
Right.
No,
Yeah.
you should get 5 cheeseburgers and give them away.
That's a beautiful thought.
Yeah.
But only if they're good cheeseburgers.
Right.
If they're not good cheeseburgers.
Hey, leave me a comment. What's your favorite cheeseburger place? There's a lot of really good cheeseburger places.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. So the next one is scatter simple pleasures throughout your day. So don't think that like one big positive thing is going to make up for the negative thing. You know, you got to, it's better to do like smaller positive things, you know, treat yourself to the coffee or,
You gotta treat yourself.
yeah, you know,
Hashtag treat yourself.
buy yourself flowers, get that new book you've been wanting, that sort of thing. Be good to yourself, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Track the good.
Track the good.
That's a pretty good one. If you kept a diet, if you have a diet, let's say I remember I saw a lot of old diary, right? You used to keep a diary. So what you should do is pull out like 10 pages out of your old journal and then rate each sentence as whether or not it's positive or negative in tone.
No, this was more along the lines of, you know, like keeping a gratitude journal, keeping like a kudos file, you know, at work.
We have our
people.
shout outs.
Shout outs are good. But, you know, if people thank you or congratulate you or whatever, keep that all in a file so that you can go back and reference it.
That was the great thing about greeting cards. Like the death of the greeting card industry, it's like people used to have little stacks of greeting cards to commemorate nice things.
Yes.
Feel like you had a terrible birthday, but you had a stack of 50 birthday cards.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You know, memorize like your favorite inspirational poem or different quotes or whatever to think on when you're when you find yourself going negative and having negative thoughts, that sort of thing. That's what Track the Good is.
I like Bible verses for that and Psalms.
No comment.
As long as it's not Leviticus.
No.
Oh, those are the most truthful parts.
It's an opinion.
Maybe so, but they
What are
are
you talking
dark.
about truthful? There's no truth spoken in
No,
those.
there's no
It's
truth spoken
It's
in
all,
it.
don't do this,
I just
don't
mean
do that, don't do
that's
this.
the part that everyone loves to ignore, to pretend like there's moral value in certain books.
All right, but I like to focus on the positive, Stephen. This clip is all about focusing on the positive.
Oh, is that what you were doing last night? Was focusing on the positive when I actually had to walk upstairs to get away from you.
Yeah, I was...
because you
I
were...
feel like nobody watches
you
my
were-
Freeform Fridays.
And that is negative. And you need
I
to
know.
watch yourself when you do that.
I know, but last week's episode got 34 views. And what I need to focus on is being thankful for every one of those 34 views.
Yes.
So if you guys are watching this, thank you.
Yes. The next one is link the negative and the positive. So, take joy in the activity you're doing that makes you happy, but also, acknowledge your apprehension about giving a presentation at work next week. Link the two together. They're not mutually exclusive.
Consider doing the presentation in a bunny suit.
There you go.
You guys are just giving me ideas. Because I do a lot of teleconferencing. I could totally wear a bunny suit while doing it.
They might not remember the presentation, but they will remember you.
Well, they wouldn't even know I was wearing it's teleconference. It's
Oh,
not. I'd just be doing it in a bunny suit because that would be fun.
And then the last one is practice realistic optimism. So
Yes, small attainable goals.
Small attainable goals, but also, acknowledge that whatever it is, acknowledge the positive parts of it while, still being realistic about, the actual work involved or the inherent, don't diminish it. Don't think, oh, it's all going to be roses and cream when there's part of it that's going to be difficult, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be realistic, but be optimistic at the same time.
Right.
So
It's like my weight loss. It's like, I'd love to be 180 or something, but let's focus on getting down to this.
A very wise person, I think it was Garfield the cat, once said that there's two kinds of problems, the ones you can solve and the ones you can't.
Yep.
There's no point worrying about the ones you can solve, and there's no point worrying about the ones you can't.
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
So
So that's Carissa Explains It All.
that is it.
So what should we do next week is the question.
Well, one thing though, I feel like the real threat that the negativity bias poses is it gives a weapon to people who want to deceive you. People who understand this bias can very easily exploit it, and someone can turn you against a person or a product or a political party or a corporation or a country by intentionally only feeding you negative things.
Yeah.
And even the most noble, heroic figure could be made to look like a villain if you only found and highlighted the bad things they had done. And so it's very
Somebody's sitting there
dangerous.
Going, yeah, I knew Gandhi. He was a prick.
Exactly. Everybody's had bad days. Everybody was an accidental ass to someone, and it happens.
Sure. I mean, take George Patton, for instance.
Who?
General, World War II.
Yes.
Made a movie about him.
Yes.
Dude's considered like a hero.
Yeah, he did the inflatable tanks to make the Germans think they were amassing in a different part.
But
Brilliant.
My
Yeah,
grandfather could not stand the man. He was one of Patton's minesweepers in World War II. Could not stand the man, refused to ever go see the movie, had nothing nice to say about him.
Yeah, and you can
So-
find that with everyone. And according to history, great men are seldom also good men at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
It's probably true. All right. What's next?
What is next?
Section. Oh, come on. I am just not having.